Hi, everyone. Welcome to Build Your Digital Community. I'm so excited. Okay, I'm actually just so excited. I'm here, California, and I am interviewing the most amazing Jaclyn Johnson. Hi, Jaclyn.
Hi.
I'm just so excited to have you here because I said this to you yesterday. My favorite part about you is that you're so generous in with your time and how you serve others, but you're also so funny.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad you like me now.
Yeah. There's no now. It's
just didn't know yet that you were gonna love me.
I had no idea. And we were talking about this before we started because Marina's a mutual friend and she's what dipped me into the Jaclyn Johnson world. And she is like the biggest Jaclyn fan of all time. Like your parents don't stand a chance, I don't think. Like
my mom's like Marina's biggest fan too, which is like so funny. Joanne like loves her. She's like, she's just got so much charisma. I'm like, I know, Mom. Anyway.
Yeah, so much charisma. Yeah. I love it. But she was so passionate about all the work that you had done with Crate and Cultivate. And this was kind of like way before Marina was involved with Crate and Cultivate in the way obviously she is now. And so she just spoke so highly of you. So I'm just so excited to jam out. And really like what I want to talk to you about today is really just about community. Yeah. And I was talking to Lori the other day about you and she was like, you get to talk to Jaclyn, the OG of community.
Truly, the old lady of community. The grandma of community, if you will.
We were talking about personal brand yesterday, and maybe that is what you rebrand to.
The grandma of community building.
A grandma's never looked so good.
A grandma's never looked so good. Trademark. Amazing. No, I'll embrace it. But I've been doing it a very, very long time.
So I want to bring you back, and I think like probably when people ask you to like bring you back, they probably bring you to the beginning of Crate and Cultivate.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to bring you back to like the agency life because Jaclyn, I think you are me of the future.
I love it.
Except a little hotter, a little more LA, a little more wine. Like, so I'm excited about it. But you get started with your agency and you start to see like, what was kind of the beginning of the agency for you? And then how did you kind of notice that there needed to be like a shift in community for you?
Yeah, it was pretty wild time to start an agency. So basically it was, truly 100 years old, the dawn of social media, if you will. Like, so
what platforms?
Like at that point, Twitter and Facebook were the main ones. Like I think Instagram was like on the horizon, but was not, obviously what it is today.
You were posting wine pictures.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like the highly filtered, like weird old photos like on Instagram or whatever. But basically, like I was working in New York at an agency called Attention, which is now like one of the largest digital marketing social media agencies. At the time, it was a word of mouth marketing. That's like what we called it because social media didn't exist yet. But it was really amazing because I got to kind of come in and work with these, guys that had started this company up, like employee number 3. And they were like, I came in, they're like, we have this client, Bluefly. I don't know if you remember Bluefly, but Bluefly was like it was sort of like discount Net-a-Porter. It was like, but it was like really came out of like, it was like the first of its kind, like designer discounted. Holy shit, like big deal. And they're like, we have this client Bluefly and we have this client Estee Lauder and like, we're a bunch of bros and like we know nothing about fashion and beauty and like we need your expertise. And so I came in and basically at the time I had a blog. So like I had this like little fashion blog where I'd make like collages and put them on the internet, like literally so 1.0. And I basically got to create these like really cool digital campaigns that were like now painful to look at because it was like I'm on forums seeding product to makeup artists and like launching Facebook pages before like Facebook even allowed Facebook pages. And it was really the early days, but the most important thing I learned being there was like how to operate an agency, how to work with clients, how to propose things, how to bill things, how to report on things, all that stuff. And so when I started my agency in LA, it was really about, I would say at the beginning, social media management. Like that was the hot shit everyone wanted. So it was like, everyone's like, we don't know what it is, but we know we need it. And so like we worked with everyone from like Farmers Insurance to Bed Bath & Beyond, like major clients, because we were really one of the only like shops offering this service where we're like, we'll create the post, we'll create a content calendar. Now this is so obvious, but at the time it wasn't. So that was really the bread and butter, like starting the agency. And then as you know, like things just moved so quickly. Then it was like, oh, and then there's YouTube and then there's Instagram. There's like 19 platforms. And then all of a sudden brands are like, we kind of want to bring this in house. Like we want to control this messaging. Like it became like less easy to outsource. And so then like people were community managers and like that role became about. So I was like, okay, interesting. Like we have to start shifting our service lines because this is going to go away eventually. And so basically we pivoted into really the influencer space. And again, that word didn't exist. It was bloggers, but it was like bloggers were really becoming a thing and like working with bloggers. And so being a blogger myself, I really understood both sides of the coin, like what bloggers wanted, from brands and what brands could get from bloggers. And so that kind of became the sweet spot too, was like working with influencers on campaigns and seeding campaigns and then events, which was a big part of it as well. So then it was like this transition into like events, influencer, like campaigns, like some marketing, some digital, like sprinkling of this and that, like kind of, everywhere, where we became kind of like full service marketing at that point. And yeah, it was a wild ride. And so I did that for almost 8 years. And then I sold that company.
So what was the impetus to sell? Like obviously Crate and Cultivate was like running, and we can get to that in a sec.
Yeah.
But like, you have this agency, it's profitable because Jaclyn doesn't do anything that's not profitable. What was it like, rather than just like keeping it while you had Crate and Cultivate building, Crate and Cultivate was probably a huge funnel for your agency.
It was so tiny at the time though, actually. So basically I sold the agency in 2016. Crate and Cultivate started to take off in 2016. So again, I think the biggest year for Crate and Cultivate, the year where like everyone thinks it started or like it got into the cultural consciousness, was 2018.
Right.
I think that was the year where everyone was like, what is this thing? But like, obviously we'd been operating for like 7 years before that. But like 2016, 2017 was like a build year where we were like getting a lot of momentum, but 2018 was the year. So, and at that point, I'd already sold the company, and like, so it was like a different time. So the risk to jump to Crate and Cultivate was actually quite large. Like it didn't, like my mom's like, don't do it. Like take the safe job, But I basically, the selling the agency was so different than selling Crate and Cultivate, 2 totally different processes, because I wasn't actively trying to sell the company. Basically, like a strategic came to me, small girls, and was like, and we had known each other for a long time. We'd like respected each other as business people. They were much larger than me. Like I think they had 30 employees. I was like 5, 6 maybe. And so they were like, we need to open an LA office. Like it's a natural expansion for us. We don't want to compete with you. We also do different things, right? Like they're more traditional PR and I was more like kind of like strategy and events and like all these different things, and influencer. And so they're like, we see this as like a synergistic opportunity.
Right.
And really what happened was, if we had done the deal when we first kind of had the conversation, where essentially I was going to be part of Small Girls PR, we would all like roll under, we'd be Small Girls West, like whatever. I'd be like the president of the West Coast, essentially. If we had done that deal then, it would have just done that deal and like that would have been what it was. But basically they had something come up where they're like, we have to put this on pause for like a little bit, but we'll be back. And I was like, cool, no problem. And within that year, I had like started, so this was like 2016, I had started Crate and Cultivate. So it was like 2016 and then 2017, they come back and they're like, let's ride, we want to do this deal. And I was like, shit's complicated. I have like another company now that I have like separate employees. I also have like a partner on it. I've invested my money in it. And they were like, oh shit. Like, but they were like, okay, well, like what's your ideal scenario? And I was like, obviously I have a pipeline of business at No Subject that's really solid, like, retainer clients, year-long contracts, amazing team of like 5, 6 girls, this dope office space. And like, I'm down to like do whatever I need to do to like make sure you guys have a smooth like entree into the West Coast. And so we basically agreed to a deal where I would stay on for a year as like the West Coast president. And then basically at the end of the year, they were like, you make the choice where you want to go. Do you stay on and like become like an equity partner in the company, or do you go do Crate and Cultivate? And in the meanwhile, they're like, you can work on Crate and Cultivate like part-time or whatever. And so I was basically having 2 full-time jobs. Like I would go to different offices. Like it was insane. Like on Tuesdays I'd be at this office, and then like from 5, like after 3 p.m. I would go there. I worked from 3 to 9 p.m. Like it was insanity. I also like bought a house, renovated it, and got married that year. I was like, I'm a fucking psycho. Like I was like, this is a nightmare.
You're a shell.
Yeah, I was literally a shell of a human, just like in my car, like freaking out. But yeah, so it was more like, and again, it was like their first acquisition. It was my first time going through the process. We had one of their advisors was like a pretty seasoned M&A guy. And so he really like helped get the deal done and like did the diligence. And then we had the lawyers talk and like all that stuff. So it was like, again, it was a acquisition, they took over the company and all that, but it was like lower stakes, I would say, than the process that CNC went through, which is like multiple parties bidding, this, that, like, you're dealing with a different set of like people and like the way you kind of are approaching it, where it was more like, hey, I like you, let's do this. And like, we want to figure it out and work together. Like there was no like, I don't know, the stakes just felt like easier in that one, but it was an amazing crash course in selling a company.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's incredible because I feel, Jaclyn, like so many people know you for Crate and Cultivate.
Yeah.
Now, including me. And all these people like don't even know about this like agency that probably was like, those were probably your formative years of learning how to be a boss and all those things.
Well, it's so funny because I got Forbes 30 under 30 for No Subject, like my agency. And everyone's always like, Crate and Cultivate, Forbes 30 under 30. I'm like, no, it's a different company. But I'm like, I'll take it, whatever. Also, I just love that I can be a Forbes 30 under 30 forever. And like, everyone's like, oh, wow. And I'm like, yeah.
I'm 29.
10 years ago. Yeah. Literally.
Can I ask a quick Forbes question? Can you be a 30 under 30 and a 40 under 40? Or are you done now?
I think there's going to be 100 under 100 at some point. Like, what are we doing with these lists? But I think 40 under 40, like, I don't know if you can do it for Forbes, but you could do it for like Fortune does it. What's up, Fortune? No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. There's so many fucking lists. But also, here's what I'll say. The list scene has changed so much. Like Forbes 30 under 30, and again, I don't know if like what's going on with it, but like, I got that organically. Like it happened and it was like so exciting. I mean, it changed my business and it changed my life, I would say. Yes. Because it put me in a credibility class that like otherwise I could not have gotten into. Like I had gotten a lot of press and PR, but like all around, like Refiner 29, Pop Sugar, like styling, blogging, this like agency owner, like a little bit of that, but I never got business press. And so it kind of catapulted me into like an echelon where people were taking me seriously, bigger clients, bigger everything. So I'm so grateful for it. Now I don't know exactly, like I don't know. I just feel like it's become almost like, it's like this big PR play versus like really plucking out talent that's like actually doing cool and interesting things, which is why I love Crate and Cultivate 100 so much is like, I mean, literally we individually are like, who is like relevant throughout the year, like who's making moves. And I love doing that stuff because I feel like that really can change people's lives. Like those lists are crazy.
Well, I was going to ask, like knowing what you know now about lists, would you pay to do it?
No, I have a weird thing about paying for stuff like that. Like,
yeah, me too.
I don't love it. Like, I also feel like it's like there's that one magazine. I forget. I don't remember what it is, but they're like, we want you on the cover, or whatever. And I'm like, oh my god, this is so exciting. And then they're like, it's just $5,000. And in my head, I'm like, no, I'm not paying to be on the cover of your magazine. Like I was just like, it's just, and I get why they need to make money, right? Like it's like they're trying to figure out their business model. So I understand why they're doing it, but something about it feels like, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of old school in that way.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way about it. And like, I think it's so hard too, especially on the internet where you get so many DMs with like all of these things. Like, and it's like, I'm sure you get it constantly.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out and suss out what's real and what's not real. And I think that's how so many people get scammed, like business owners.
Totally.
Like, and they'll be like, I'm like doing this thing for this magazine for 10 grand. And I'm like, oh, no,
don't do it.
Pay off your line of credit. Like, it's like, yeah, it's not what I would put my money towards.
Totally.
But curious for you, Jaclyn, like you're at this point where you're like starting Crate and Cultivate.
Yeah.
Like what was the impetus of the first event that you put on?
Yeah. So this is 2011, I would say. Wow. Yeah. So
a child.
Yeah. Like truly, were you born? I don't know. But basically the impetus was the Ace Hotel in Palm Springs had reached out to us for like No Subject and basically was like, we need to drive hotel stays during the week. Like, do you have ideas? We'll give you space for free. Like, like if you have client, like whatever. They're just like, this is what we're trying to do. We'll give you like, let's do a partnership or whatever. And so basically I was like, okay, who can take off during the week and like go to Palm Springs? And it was like freelance. In my mind, I'm like freelancers, like like that community was just sort of rising up. So it was like business owners, like whatever. And so then I was like, okay, what would like a dream weekend look like, right? Or like a couple days look like? And at that point, it was like, again, in 2011, like DIY was really big. So I basically started tapping some of like these big DIY influencers that I knew to be like, hey, let's host like get your hands dirty. And the whole concept was like, let's create and create cool shit together and cultivate awesome relationships. And like, let's get our hands dirty, get off behind our fucking computers and like plant some succulents and like whatever. Right. And so then as part of that, I had business owners come and speak. And again, it wasn't necessarily like all women. Like I had like Kill Spencer, who like was this amazing guy downtown LA who was like launched this leather brand that went viral. So we had like all these cool people. It was like all different walks of life and like everyone coming together. Like the formats were not dialed. It was like we're figuring it out, right?
Yeah.
But we had this creatives dinner at the end of the event, right? Where I was like, we're gonna have this like beautiful like long dinner table. It's gonna be like amazing, whatever. And again, this is like before its time. But this is how broke I was. Okay, so we basically book out the space and I'm like, I have no budget for anything. So I bought all this like colored electrical tape, or painter's tape. And I did like little geometric shapes on the walls with this painter's tape. Like it was so bad. Like it was just, I had no money. I was just like figuring it out. And it was interesting because what really game changed that event was like one thing. One was my friend at Levi's, who was like their head of PR, was like, what is this thing you're doing? It looks really cool. And I was like, we're going to get together, assumably like 30 cool creative freelancers, like come together, do like workshops and like whatever. And she was like, oh my God, amazing. How can I sponsor? And in my head, I had not even thought about sponsorship. So I was like, sure. I was like, you could be like the presenting partner. And she's like, how much would it be? And I was like, $3,000. Like I had no idea. So she was like, yeah, cool. Run my credit card. Like, I don't give a shit. Like whatever. And so we built out this like Levi's pop-up shop. Levi's was this partner of the creative dinner.
For $3,000?
For $3,000. And literally I was like, but I the reason why, well, one is like, I had no idea about sponsorship, but two, I was like, whatever it takes to get Levi's associated, because Levi's was like the it brand, especially like in that time. And so when we launched and it was like Levi's, Crate and Cultivate, everyone's like, what is this brand? Like, I want to be a part of it. I want to not only be a part of it, I want to attend. Brands came out of the woodworks. How do we work with you? And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like this was like a one and done thing. But then I was like, well, maybe this is actually something more to it. And as I was like running a whole other company, but it became this like great funnel. And I started like thinking through it and like kind of figuring out the format. And then, what was interesting to me, which was like being a female business owner, and like slowly started to build out these panels and conversations and like more things like that, like little Instagrammable moments, which again, like no one was doing at the time. Like we had so many like little touches that we would kind of do, again, on no budget, but like everyone wanted to be a part of it. So we started like selling out, needing bigger venues. Like it was crazy, the momentum around it, but I still wasn't like taking it super seriously because I was like busy with client work. So I was like, okay, this thing is kind of a thing. It wasn't making money. It was like breaking even, maybe losing a little bit of money, but I'm like, it's a thing. People care about it, but like these people pay me real money, so I need to like do that. So I was like in this like weird situation for, I want to say like 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was, when you're like, it's growing, you're running these events, they're starting to probably make a bit of money, you're starting to make these connections with sponsors, like starting to actually build something. By the time you're about to leave your agency, do you have employees at Crate and Cultivate?
Yes. So basically like 2015, it became apparent to me that Crate and Cultivate had a lot of momentum. Like brands I would have died to work with at the agency were like emailing me and being like, how do we get involved and whatever. So all of a sudden I was like, there's something here. But again, I was like, I don't know what. Like I wasn't a conference girly. I didn't know, but I was like, there's definitely something here. Parallel pathing that was like the beginning of like these insane, extravagant influencer events. So I'm doing those for clients like L'Oreal and Urban Decay and whoever. And we're like going actually to Napa, doing this like beautiful dinner for all these influencers, whatever. And like my sister basically comments and is like, oh my God, I would love to go to an event like that. And so like light bulb moment, I'm like, yeah, why aren't consumer event? Like, why can't we have like beautiful flower walls and all the things that all these influencers are posing in front of for consumers? Like, why does it have to be like one or the other? And like, so I started to like bake that into the experience, and then we started getting more sponsors. So there was like a whirlpool starting around it. But again, I wasn't like, okay, well, we're gonna do conferences, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. I was just like, this is a thing, and I don't know what it is, but it's a thing. And so basically, before the acquisition, my then the business partner that ended up coming on, which her name is Raina Panchansky. She was the founder of DBA, which is the largest, like the first ever digital influencer talent agency. And I'd been signed with them for some time. And like, we had always like danced around working with each other. Like she was like, do I buy no subject? I don't know if we want to do a service business. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like we had this thing where we're like, we want to work together. We don't know what it is, for years. And she basically called me and was like, what is this Crate and Cultivate thing? And I was like, it's like this side project. Like it doesn't really make money. She's like, no, let's do it. I think that's the thing we do together. And I was like, you think? She's like, I have talent, like relationships with all these like influencers and bloggers. Like, you know how to like build cool shit. Like, let's just try it. And she was really adamant about it. And I was like, kind of like, I don't know. Like, I was like, and then I'm doing this. I have this other company, like whatever. And she was like, I'll like invest, money into it. I was like, okay, great. So I invested money. She invested money. So we invested like collectively $300,000 into the business to just like kickstart it. So this was like 2016. And so at that point, I hired employees. So with that, I basically brought on, I think my first hire was an editorial director. And then my second hire was a producer. And then like it slowly like built from there.
How did you make the choice to invest in your own business? Because I know we'll talk about this like probably in a minute, but angel investing is like very close to you and like what you're doing, especially what you're doing now. And I know I'm always like plagued by this idea of like, who am I going to give money to? Is it better to just give it to myself?
Yeah.
Or am I, going to give it to Jaclyn, which I gave it to you?
Great choice.
Yeah, it was a great choice. But you know what I mean? Like, how did you make that choice?
Honestly, I would have never thought to do it. She was the one who was like, okay, I'll put in 250, you put in 50 and like, let's go. And basically, and we paid ourselves back. So it was like, we did an investment and then we paid ourselves back. But like it was funny. I would have never thought to do that. Like, cause in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's like, I need to build it. I needs to make money. Like, why am I putting money into it? But then like, I realized like, in order for it to make money, I have to spend money and I need to structure it properly and like actually put some cash behind this and get some employees as part of it. So it was nice because like, she really pushed me to like do things I felt like on my own felt very scary. You know what I mean? So it was like nice to have that person in my corner who like understood and was like, hey, and she had a whole other company too. So it was like two people who had whole other companies were like starting a company together and we're like, fuck it, let's see what we can do.
And how involved, like, from a partnership perspective, like how involved were both of you in it? Because were you kind of running the show a bit?
Yeah. So she was basically like, she's like, I can help front cash for stuff because events are expensive, right?
Yes.
So it's like, basically that was like a luxury I didn't have where I, to be able to front like a ton of money. So early on, that was like one of the things that she helped with. Also, the talent piece, like she helped bring all the talent, together. So that was a huge part of it. And then as like the partnership group, she wasn't day to day at all. I was day to day. I was basically like at the only full-time employee that was like at the company. That was like like a partner throughout the duration of the company. But basically then it was like, as we grew, she was like, okay, like you can leverage our HR support. Like you can leverage our this, you could leverage our office space. Like it became more like she was like supporting us, like almost like incubating us through, because she had a huge company of like 50, 60 people. And then she eventually sold her business to UTA. But like, it was like, okay, like I'm starting to do this for my company. You guys just like, we're like, bring us along with you, kind of thing.
Mom?
Yeah, like, well, totally. Like, can we get the free thing? Like the HR guy was like, oh, this bitch again. Like, so annoying. I was like, my person's is yelling at me. Like, I was like, oh God, he's like, these annoying girls. But honestly, like, it was the perfect partnership coming out of my partnership with No Subject, where I broke up with my business partner. It was like pretty nasty. It was like,
I didn't know you had a business partner.
Yeah. So we early days, and then I basically ran it for like 4 years by myself. But like, it was just like, bad taste in your mouth. Like it's hard. And that happens to so many people. Yeah. And so going to this, I was weary as fuck. I was like, this is so stressful. But it was like, she was like, I don't want to have any, like, you do your shit. You tell me what you need. Like, and here's what I'm good at. Here's what I can bring to the table. And like, here's where I think I can support you. And she did that the whole way through. And even like, to the point where we brought on additional partners, like 2018, and she brought them to the table, and they were game changers for our business too. So Blended Strategy Group, which is Allison Statter and Sherry Jawar, their partners in that business, came in, and basically they like loved Crate and Cultivate. And then they're like, what do we do here? And they also had brand relationships as well as talent relationships that were outside of what, Raina and I had already kind of like leveraged a lot of our relationships over the years. So brought in a whole fresh slew of opportunity. And so they came in as partners into the business too. And so like, again, it was like we saw the roadmap very clearly of like where we needed to go and who we needed to bring in, which is why sometimes I'm like, you can own 100% of something, but like it's really, the reason why I don't get crazy precious about equity stuff is like, it's more beneficial to have the right people in the room with you than it is to just have the most amount of equity. Cause like as much as like I ran the day to day, like I was killing myself to do all that stuff. I was like, whatever, like they also brought opportunities that I otherwise would have never had.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that. How did you keep your like head straight when this is like running and you like competitor brands started popping up? Because you were kind of an OG, and then you start seeing these like other people running probably entrepreneurial events. Like, how did you kind of keep it together?
It's hard because I think like, well, one was like we ran into a lot of like like not like people like doing their own thing, but like truly like using our images and like whatever, where I'm like that I'm not here for. I'm like, get your own ideas, get your own thing.
Get your own flower wall.
Get your own flower wall. But like, here's the thing is like, I didn't mind it because I felt like, I mean, yes, of course, everyone takes up market share. From a financial perspective, it sucks a little bit. You're competing, whatever. But like, I mean, if I was making vases, I'd be like, oh, that sucks. Like, I hate this guy. But I'm like, oh, you're doing events for women. Like, it's, it's fine. Like,
it's like never too many charities.
Yeah, exactly. Like, exactly. Like all, like high tide rises all boats type of deal. So I wasn't like mad about that. I think also it was like kind of wild to like look back, like Kelsey from East Olivia, who was our florist forever. So like all of the creative vision of like everything you've seen on Pinterest, like every flower, like Kelsey and I came up together, like us late night sketching shit, coming up with ideas, like whatever. And like we did the massive Pampas wall, like in Chicago and like whatever. And like sometimes like Kelsey and I, she would like call me and be like, we invented that shit. And I was like, totally, we really did. Like, I look at stuff and I'm like, at people's baby showers, and I'm like, that is pulled from a Crate and Cultivate stage that I designed in Keynote using random shapes. Like, you know, it's like, I'm like, it's just so wild to see the impact on the event industry as a whole, because it really did have like, it changed the landscape, I think, in a lot of ways. And it's like, that's wild that it's like, you know, we were able to do that. So it's very cool. But like, I think at the end of the day, like, you know, it means you're doing something right when people pop up. I just think it's like the approach is like important in that way.
Thanks so much for listening to Community with me, Christina Bartold, and I'm just so excited to continue the conversations. If you're looking to grow your community and learn more about social, join us at thesocialbusinessclub.ca and use the code podcast to get your first month for $1. Share this episode with your friends and on social, or leave a review. It means the world.